Chapter 15. The Weight of a Kingdom. When she finally returned, much later, the stallion was coated in dust and foam, and so was she. Flushed cheeks, windswept hair, eyes brighter than the desert sky. She dismounted slowly, brushing sand from her arms and hands as if grounding herself once more in the palace reality she had fled. She didn't look in my direction. If she knew I had seen her, she gave no sign of it. But something told me she had. I also knew with the smile on her face that she would be going out again because whatever called her into the wild wasn't done with her yet, and neither was I. I stood for some time in the long shadows cast by the stables, watching as she handed off her reins to a stable boy. Zafira's movements were sharp and efficient, purposeful, though the faintest tremble clung to her fingers, betraying the calm mask she wore. Freedom lived in her veins. I could see it. The desert wind sang in her spirit and in her stride, and yet, like a falcon on a jeweled perch, she was caged by duty. This kingdom was as much hers to carry as it was her father's to rule. She had no siblings, no mother beside her. No one else could bear the weight. And I was no prince. If I could have saddled that stallion for her myself and led her beyond the palace walls, far from the politics and the expectations, I would have. Without hesitation. I would have carried her to the mountains or the sea, wherever she could breathe without being watched, without being held to a crown she never asked to wear. But I knew she would never leave. If she did, the kingdom would fracture. There were whispers already in the halls, quiet things said behind ornate fans and drawn curtains. She was not just her father's daughter. She was the glue that held everything together. That thought led me to another. Something stirred within me, a question I had meant to ask long ago, but never found the right moment to voice. I had always been cautious around her, watchful, observant, but tonight I wanted to know more. I wanted to understand the woman who had become so integral to my life, to understand the darkness in her past that she rarely spoke of. Where was her mother? I had heard nothing of a queen, seen no signs of her in the palace, no chambers prepared, no attendants speaking of her, no portrait even, which was odd. Royalty immortalized their lineages in paint and stone, but Zafira's bloodline seemed to begin and end with the king. That night, as moonlight spilled into the palace halls and the warmth of day gave way to the cool hush of desert stars, I found her on one of the upper terraces. She sat on the edge of a marble bench, her feet tucked beneath her, staring out over the glittering city below, and then back up at the stars that had just started to come out. It was as though she couldn't get enough of either, and I had to agree with her they were both beautiful. But my gaze only stayed on her. She was far more beautiful than anything else to me. Her silks caught the light, gold threads dancing against dark cloth like fire against ash. She stood up suddenly. She went to stand at the balcony, her back to me as she gazed out over the vast stretch of desert. The orange hues of the dying sun painting the world in shades of fire and shadow. Her hair billowed in the desert breeze. She sat atop the ledge, one leg bent, the other dangling over the edge, utterly at ease in a place that would make lesser hearts race with fear. Above her the desert stars burned clear, bright, wild. She looked as if she belonged to them. I didn't speak. I waited in the shadow of the doorway, as always, hidden just enough that she wouldn't notice unless she wished to. She leaned back onto her elbows and sighed. Not out of weariness, but as one does when overwhelmed by beauty too vast to hold. I saw her lips move, whispering something to the stars, a prayer, a wish, a name. "I wonder if the stars remember us," she said. I stepped forward before I had the chance to stop myself. "I imagine they do," I said low and steady. She didn't flinch, didn't even look startled. She simply turned her head slowly as if she'd known I was there all along. Her mouth curved into a faint smile. You always move like you belong to the shadows, healer.